negative interpretation of events. For example, somebody has not replied to my message, therefore they don't like me. And negative interpretation of future. My future has no future, right? So that would be a negative view of future, hopelessness. How do we deal with feeling depressed? So many times we have this thought that my life is useless, मेरी पूरी life बर्बाद हो गई, or my entire career is ruined, my relationship is worthless, it doesn't make sense. How do you have ever such thoughts? My entire life is waste, my future is not good enough, or whatever, right? So imagine that this glass represents my life. Now this is water and problem-free water. So I can drink water from this, which means that I can enjoy my life because it's problem-free. Then some of the problems come in my life. For example, let's say that I have a health issue. I don't like that health issue, but can I still drink water from this? Hmm. I treated the problem as a pebble, and I can still enjoy my life despite the health issue. Then there are other issues, like my wife kicks me out of the house for the seventh time. And then again, I don't like this, but I can still live my life without my wife. So then another issue, which is my medical degree gets confiscated, so I can't practice now. Then my children fail in the exams, and then so many problems. So I could have hundreds of problems in my life, and then uh, even despite these problems, I can still drink water from this, right? Even if this entire glass was full of problems, I would be able to sip a little bit from it. Which means that if I treated my life's problems as pebbles, I would be able to enjoy my life despite having problems. Some of these problems can be removed, right? So some of the problems can be solved and some will always remain there. But I can still enjoy my life. I will never say that my life is meaningless or worthless. But what if, instead of treating my life's problems as pebbles, I treat them as a drop of ink? Now will I be able to drink water from this? I will say that the entire life is ruined. No point in life, no point in relationship, no point in career, no point in whatever, right? So it's up to us whether we treat life's problems as pebbles or ink. It's up to us. If you do that with as an ink, you will feel very depressed. Dealing with loneliness, in fact, loneliness is a feeling that is necessary for survival, just like anxiety, anger, depression. This is also necessary for survival. We'll not get into it how. However, loneliness is experienced by everyone, even if they are in a fulfilling relationship. So, loneliness is a feeling we experience when the quality of relationships and quantity of relationships we want is this, and the truth is this. So, we see there is a disparity in the quantity and quality of relationships that we want. So, even if you do have a good relationship, you may still feel lonely. So, how do we deal with loneliness? There are two myths that fuel loneliness. Number one, the soulmate myth. That there is one perfect soulmate for me, and if the person I'm with is not my true soulmate, then nobody else can be compatible with me. Or there are something like perfect soulmates. The truth is that no, there is nothing like a perfect soulmate, and in fact, you can be reasonably compatible with millions and millions of people. So, just because there is poor compatibility between you and your partner does not mean that there's zero compatibility. And actually speaking, there's nothing like perfect compatibility. So you can improve certain things in the relationship. However, that does not mean that there is a perfect partner that exists. Number one. Number two is that love, I need love, or love is necessary for happiness. This is not true. Have you ever seen people who are in love and still unhappy? Right? Have you ever seen people who are happy but they don't have a loving partner? Yeah. So love can enhance happiness, but it's neither necessary nor sufficient for happiness. So if you remember these two things, then the basic uh, things that fuel loneliness will be reduced. Then how how to reduce loneliness further is by getting dopamine, serotonin, these are the neurochemicals, or happiness from multiple sources. I'm not encouraging you to have multiple partners, but multiple sources like your hobbies, your creative interests, your exercise, self-care, and so on. So the more sources of happiness you have, the lesser impact loneliness will have on you, but cannot be eliminated. Okay, so many times we feel hurt. Have you ever felt hurt? Somebody treated you so badly that you started feeling that, oh my God, मेरी तो कुछ value ही नहीं रही. I have been left with no value. Ever happened to you? You felt worthless because somebody treated you bad. Now, in this situation, how to deal with hurt, specifically when you feel worthless? What's the value of this note? If I put it on my head and say, Kineni, you have 2,000 rupees, same, right? Okay. What if I do this? I really treated it badly, right? What's the value of this note now? Is the problem with the note or is the problem with the person who treated it badly? The person who treated it badly. He does not know how to treat the note well, right? So whenever you feel very badly treated, do not take it personally. It's not your problem. It's the other person's problem who did not treat you well. So no point in being hurt. You can be disappointed. खंत जिसको हम कहते हैं मराठी में कि थोड़ा सा दुख. Very bad. This person has treated me like this, but don't take it personally. So you won't get offended or very hurt that oh my God, he did this and I have no value left now. Nothing like that. The value is intrinsic value does not change. It's just the other person didn't treat you well. Now, yes, please.
So what you said is correct. But how can I overcome this?
Overcome what exactly?
You are saying that if someone is hurting you, or if I feel hurt, this is all for saying it's okay. Yeah, I should not hurt. This is my value. But at that moment, I will feel hurt.
It's natural. It's natural to feel hurt. By asking yourself a question, what does this bad behavior mean to me? Mostly, this is unfairness the other person has done to me, or it is demeaning the other person has done. We feel hurt when someone demeans us or is unfair towards us. So you may ask yourself, how does this change my value? It does not, then it's unfortunate what the other person has done. And if it is unfair treatment, let's say that somebody has been unfair to you, not demeaning you publicly, but unfair to you, you may still ask yourself that I don't like unfairness or I cannot tolerate unfairness. What would be your answer?
I don't like
Unfairness. But you can tolerate it, right? It doesn't kill you.
it depends upon the situation, the level of unfairness.
So let's say that there is very extreme level of unfairness. Would you think that you can't tolerate unfairness?
Yeah.
And in that situation, extreme unfairness, if you were convinced that you really don't appreciate unfairness, but you can tolerate it, will you feel hurt or not hurt?
Currently, I don't know how to react.
If you were convinced that no, this is also something I don't like, but I can tolerate, will you feel hurt or not hurt?
No.
So let's come to that. How to convince yourself that you don't like it, but you can tolerate it. Let's say that I was walking and I fall down and my toe gets hurt. Will I like it? Will I like the pain? No. But will I be able to tolerate the pain? Then, I get hospitalized and I fall down from the first floor and I break a couple of bones, right? Will I like the pain?
No.
Will I be able to tolerate the pain?
No.
Yes. Yes, I will survive and I will be able to tolerate the pain. Then the doctor would give me injections. It would be very hard to bear, but I will be able to tolerate the pain. But if I fall from 16th floor, will I like the pain?
You don't have to worry about it. Depends upon where you are falling. If you are falling in a swimming pool.
Even in swimming pool probably. So if I fall down on concrete floor, will I like the pain? No. Will I be able to tolerate the pain? The concrete is set, right? I'm to a civil engineer. It's hard concrete, right? Will I like the pain? Will I be able to tolerate the pain? No, that will kill me. So anything that kills me, something I can't tolerate, means I cannot endure. However, everything else is something that is unacceptable to me, it is unpardonable to me, it's inadmissible to me, it's something I can't approve of, I don't like, but I can tolerate. Means I can endure it. It does not mean that it's okay, but I can endure it. So the unfairness you were talking about, can you endure it without liking it? Now, will you feel hurt or only disappointed about the unfairness?
The problem is my mind will not think all these things
Correct.
when someone.
But now, can
I'll
you think
become
about the
anger.
past incident that other person was unfair to me, and did I endure the unfairness or no? You endured it, right? But it was not acceptable. So you can always stand up for your rights and say that no, no, this is not acceptable, right? But for your internal use only. However, I can endure it. It does not kill me. Then you won't feel that pain inside you, which means that your endurance is higher than the hurt itself, right? Yes.
If you don't feel pain or hurt or you endured it, then you might think that maybe that person hurt you because you hurt the person earlier or something. Then there is no correction to your maybe past behavior.
No, because you don't like it. You don't like it, you will do something to fix it. Right? It's important to say, I don't like it. I'm not saying it's okay if the other person has let me down. I'm not saying I cannot tolerate it. I'm saying midway that I don't endure it, and I can endure it, however, I don't like it. So you may address it that why did you behave with me like this? And then the other person may say that because you also did the same thing for me. And then that might get a closure to the whole incident. That, all right, I am sorry for what I've done. It was unintentional, but whatever you did was also not acceptable. Right? And then there may be a closure or at least an opening to the discussion for that. But if we keep it inside, what happens typically after being hurt? We keep the things to ourselves. We don't tell the other person that I'm feeling really upset. So not liking it is important. You had a question.
Yeah. Similar question. My question was there is certain grief associated with that crushed expectation, right? Because of the unfair. How do you deal with the grief or the sense of loss? If you had an idea of the relationship here, but it has fallen down somewhere. So how to deal with that sense of grief and loss?
Grief is, strictly speaking, grief is the feeling we experience after the death of a loved one. So let's talk about the loss of the relationship or the value of the relationship. Now, is your feeling healthy or unhealthy?
It's unhealthy, but sometimes you can't just feel.
Right. If it is unhealthy, then either of these, what are you thinking about the relationship? That the whole relationship is bad or worthless because of this behavior? Then probably you're treating this crushing experience as a drop of ink. Probably. So you could treat it as a big boulder in the glass. Like this is not acceptable. Right? I do not like physical mental abuse, but this needs to be fixed. And if it is a deal breaker for you, you can also say that. Not that the entire relationship is ruined. However, it's a deal breaker for me, so let me get out of the relationship. Right? But that can be done with less emotional upset or a lot of emotional upset. Right? That's why we say that our behavior, what action are we taking? Is it helpful in the longer run? In fact, getting out of the relationship might be helpful in the longer run. So then it would be a healthy reaction. But if you keep suffering, sulking, self harm in the relationship, and the other person continues to abuse you, then your action is not helpful in the long run. So that's what we say about healthy and negative, unhealthy negative. So let's deal with the most common problem students have, and we all have, is poor concentration. The number one regulator of focus and concentration is sleep. Let me drop some truth bombs on you. Number one, the duration of sleep that is required for adults is around 8 hours per 24 hours. how many of you are actually getting 8 hours of sleep? One, two, and three, four, five. Oh, wow, wonderful. So good. So we have around 10% people who are getting enough sleep. The duration is fine. One is 8 hours. 7 to 8 hours would be still acceptable. For slightly older people, more than 40, 45, 7 to 8 hours should be good enough. But anyone below 45 should be sleeping 8 hours a day. Then the ideal time is 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Now, are you really getting this? No. Because that's the actual time when the brain should be sleeping. In fact, our brain is not designed for artificial lights. We were not supposed to have artificial lights. But now, because we have it, we have started having non communicable diseases because our sleep patterns are shifting. And they must not shift. If they shift, there are a whole lot of things that happen to our body and the brain itself. We don't want to get there, but poor focus and concentration is the first thing you will notice. Do you see your students drowsy in the morning classes and do you prefer the evening classes? Right? Drowsy in the morning? Evening little better, right? Full awake, right? Why is this happening? Because they have been sleeping at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning, right? So everything has shifted.
When they go to US, they actually nice.
So, yeah, I think, but this is number one priority of any department to fix the children's or students' sleeping time. And I don't know what methods you want to employ, but if you take this up, a lot of your stress would come down because your students are sleeping in time, they're waking up in time, and you have to put in lesser efforts to teach them. And how many times, they lost focus and they ask the same question over and over again, and then your work goes up, right? So it's important that they are attentive, and for that you may have to enforce solutions. Sorry.
Yeah, they're not interested.
Problem is
They're not asking questions, right? But then they get into a crisis later, and then they run after you, right? Like, sorry, ye batao, sorry, ye batao. Yes, so that happens. Exercise is number two regulator of focus and concentration. Exercise has effects lasting after the exercise itself, so it boosts the blood flow to the brain. Third is vitamins. I want all of you to do these blood tests, and you'll thank me later for doing these blood tests. Yes. So we have to do these blood tests, which is CBC, complete blood count, vitamin B12, vitamin D3, and thyroid, TSH, which is thyroid stimulating hormone. Just do these blood tests. What can stop you from doing these blood tests? I have an annual checkup scheduled in October anyway, so that time I will do it. Don't go there. Simply do it instantly, like it's free in the hospital that you have. But quickly get it done. Don't wait for the full body checkup. वो बाद में होता रहेगा. But just get these four blood tests done. And I'm sure that around 95% of people here would have some of the other levels of the mark. And if you fix them drastically, quickly, within a week, your energy levels, your focus, concentration, everything comes back on track. And you say, why didn't I do this? So please do this. Do not just assume that you have deficiency or don't have deficiency, but just do the blood test and get rocking. Screen time. The recommended screen time is 1 to 2 hours by researchers. I sometimes feel like killing these researchers. What do you mean by 1 to 2 hours? Can I negotiate? These are recommendations. So, most of the, I would say, work is on screens these days. So they say at least the recreational screen time should not exceed 2 hours. So your WhatsApp, your YouTube videos, your Netflix must not exceed 2 hours. Adult ADHD is very common. So people with adult ADHD, they have, because they have been high functioning, they have intelligence, they never score less marks in exams, but they were not their optimal marks. So they keep getting distracted sometimes they lose focus, they get sidetracked by either mobile phone or noise somewhere, and that could be a sign of adult ADHD. So it's easy to screen. All of you can get a test. Hima ma'am is gonna, I'm going to send to Meera ma'am as well. So the test is self-assessment test. If you see majority of the ticks in the gray area of the test, then you may have to get evaluated for ADHD. And we have assessments available. Rounds we have, right? So, जो भी है, like, do we need a faculty wellness center? We need one, right? Yes, huge population, right? Why don't we have one? So, adult ADHD can be tested very easily. I, I know how to do the test, but it has to be coupled with an evaluation. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So even if someone is not restless and hyperactive, they may still be attention deficit, which is they can't focus beyond a certain point. Right? Many students have it and they don't even know it. So I would recommend that all students should be screened for ADHD. And if they are, then it needs to be treated.
I think it's a number of distractions. Everybody has it.
Right.
Message, something,
True.
thing.
True. So this is why it has to be evaluated properly. Is it simply overuse of screen because they mimic symptoms? ADHD overlaps with screen usage,
Yeah.
and they both can coexist. And that's why.
And if it is diagnosed, then what would be?
What's the treatment? Medication that needs to be treated with medication. There are some medications that are very, very effective in ADHD. Another reason is anxiety, where we lose focus. One important misconception about focus is that people should have razor sharp focus. No, this is not true. In fact, our brain has the capacity to attend to many things at a time. For instance, you are attending to my voice, you're also attending to the visuals, you're also attending to my non-verbal communication. You also have something going on in your head about the evening dinner plan, right? You also have something when the mobile phone vibrated, you know that whose message was it, you want to respond to it. So we have multi-focus. It's not possible to have a razor sharp focus, and it's absolutely okay. So if you think that just because there is a thought coming to my head, it means I don't have good focus, not true. Just don't engage in those thoughts excessively so that your primary focus goes away. But at the same time, multitasking, doing many things at the same time, can be counterproductive, especially if they are cognitive tasks. Like you have opened 6 different tabs on a browser, and then you are doing intensive work on each of them. So that can significantly affect your productivity. So do one thing at a time and close it. This was about anxiety. Now let's quickly get into 6 pillars of mental health. What are the 6 different pillars of mental health? This is again the same thing. क्या हो रहा है पता नहीं. These 6 pillars of mental health are: number one is sleep, that I've already discussed about, the duration and the timing. The second is exercise, and third is your nutrition. Every bite is nutritious, just remember this thing. So, first 3 are biological, means something that has to do with the body itself: sleep, exercise, and nutrition. So, check these, and these 3 boxes are ticked. Fourth one is screen time again. Fifth one is doing something every day that aligns with your purpose of life. How many of you have created purposes of life, that this is why I'm living? If you have not, it's high time that you create a purpose of life, at least 2, 3 purposes of life that align with your values. That these are my values, and this is how I want to live my life, right? And the last pillar of mental health is actually having multiple sources of happiness, not just derive happiness from profession or relationships, but multiple sources of happiness. The more sources of happiness you have, the happier you will be. And if these are in place and still you do not feel very, very happy, then it's time to consult a professional to evaluate properly if there's something wrong. What do the data say about our pillars of mental health? Average sleep time, this is your data. Ideal is 7 to 8 hours, right? Only 18% are getting it. And then if we look at less sleep, then 54 plus 18. This is the amount of people who is getting, which is around 72% people are getting less than recommended sleep. And a few of them are getting slightly more than recommended sleep. Can't afford to, right? How often do you exercise? What is ideal is 1 to 4 days a week, at least 4 days a week, but only 31% are getting it. Every day, only 9%. 5 to 6 times a week, very good. I would say 13% are getting it, but this proportion is concerning. Right? Around half of the people are not getting exercise at all. So let's check if you will be on wheelchair at the age of 80 or no. I want you to get up from the seat without using the hands, right? Raise your hands. Right? Okay, and now stand up. Nobody's gonna be on the wheelchair. Okay. So you should be able to get up without using your hands from the seat. Screen time less than 1 hour is very little. More than 9 hours. 7 to 9 hours is also crazy, which is 5 to 7 hours is maximum. So I think 75%, 70 to 80% people are using screens more than recommended, right? And that is problematic. Why? Or very very bad for mental health. Let's imagine that all of you have chai, but before having chai, you have a cube of sugar. How is the chai taste? Bland, right? Similarly, when we use screens, the screens raise your stimulation threshold of the brain, and everything else appears to be boring. Even your daily tasks at work, family, your students, everything will be boring. How many times did you really appreciate the beauty of the nice gardens or a nice flower in the garden? We don't have the time. We don't appreciate it anymore because we need higher stimulation. So this is one problem with using screens. Everything appears mundane and less interesting. So we stop doing these things. And if you are on screen for 9 hours, you're not moving at that time. So total activity comes down, which is really, really bad for the brain. So if your total activity has come down, what will happen is slowly the fat muscle ratio will go like this. Your fat will go up and your muscles will go down because you're not using the muscles much. So the fat muscle percentage goes up like this. And then, no matter how hard you try eating less or exercising, then this may not get back on track because the total activity is reduced. So this is how these two things affect the mental health and physical health as well. And we saw that the students' most common problem is difficulty concentrating. If this is your reported most common problem, I think we need to get back to sleep, start with sleep again. Number one, get back to sleep, make exercise compulsory. Every student must exercise. So you may have some incentives for them for having proper sleep and proper exercise. Is it possible to devise a technique where their attendance in gym would be in some way incentivized?
First year they have mandatory sports coach, something like that. NSO is there, which is mandatory for them.
Not all students.
Not all.
It is divided into NSO, NSC, and ABC.
It's only first year.
First year.
After that, it's
After that,
I mean, like just speaking my mind out loud, we could have smart bands and we could monitor their total activity and then incentivize it. And if
they will find ways to.
but if two smart bands have exactly same data, then it's invalid, right? And like you could be smarter. Anyway, I was just saying that this needs to be prioritized. That their exercise instead of blaming someone for not attending the class, not being attentive, let's get into the root of it. Like, why is this person not attentive? What is happening here? Instead of they are not listening to me, we could see at how can this problem be resolved. So we know that these are the things, and these are the things that cause low concentration. So we should be able to address them. It's a biological issue, basically. It's not a discipline issue. Not focusing is not a discipline issue. Okay, so let's quickly, we have only 5 minutes left, but we'll quickly overview the ineffective and effective discipline strategies in the classroom. The basic communication skills that I think all students and professors, lecturers, and all staff would rather have are these, which is empathy, the accurate understanding of the other person's thinking, feelings, and behavior. Respect, that everyone is equal. However, there is regard for authority which is different, right? And then respect means everyone is equal as a human being. However, you may still want the regard as an authority, which is absolutely fine. Acceptance means you are human and you are destined to make mistakes. So you can make a mistake, you can also correct the mistake. Validation is saying that, yes, I understand you're upset, I understand you're going through this problem, and that's because you're human. Paraphrasing is summarizing what the other person has said to you. So somebody, let's say that a student comes up to you and then they say that I have this problem, I have this issue, then you may want to quickly brief by saying that what I understand from your narration is this. Many times the student will say, no, this is not what I meant. I meant this. And if we are able to fix this communication gap a little bit, then a lot of afterwork can be saved. Warmth is the expression of caring in verbal and non-verbal means. So you may verbally say that I really care about your marks, I really care about your well-being, hey, how is your grandmother now, and so on. Or we could be there, present there, or you could offer them a small privilege. That's a non-verbal way to show warmth. Normalizing is many people of your age, or many people like you go through this issue. Self-disclosure is again has to be helpful. I have gone through similar situations, and this is what may work for you. So when you want to provide solutions, instead of saying do this, do that, one of the options is this. One of the options is this to do, so that they get encouraged to take up that option rather than resisting you for telling something. Yeah, many times discipline is confused with obedience. Obedience means do what I say. Do exactly what I say. Discipline is the most efficient way to do something. Discipline is the most efficient way to do something. Now this is a new definition, right? But if you look at, let's say that everyone wanted to go out of this room, a disciplined way would be a line, right? One after other. But what if everyone rushed through the door? Then it would take a little more time. It's not an efficient way. However, it is disciplined, correct? Not only just the efficient way, but disciplined way. So let's get this correct here. What is the definition of it? Now there are some styles of disciplining, some styles of teaching. The first number style is harsh, which is unkind and firm. So you may punish, you may yell, you may threaten the students for not doing what they are supposed to do, which is you're very unkind. You may use verbal, non-verbal communication that is harsh and aimed at a punishment or inducing fear in them. And you're very firm. No means no. Yes means yes. So you're not flexible, but at the same time unkind. Second is kind and firm. So if you look at kind and firm, where you're loving, you're warm towards them, at the same time very firm on your stand that I have already told you this, that this is not going to happen, and if you want, then this has to be done, right? So being very firm and not, I would say, at the same time not being rude to them. And the third one is kind and unfirm. So you get very, very flexible, you get very intimidated by the students' threats or whatever tantrums they throw. So then you are kind but unfirm. So what is the difference between firm and rigid? So I usually give an example of a rope. Let's say there is a rope. The rope is flexible, but at the same time very firm, very strong. However, if we take the example of a pencil, the pencil is very rigid, but it breaks quickly. Right? So do not be like a pencil or a rock, which is very rigid, but be flexible yet strong like a rope. So you may want to give them alternative ways to do something without being submissive. So flexibility is encouraged, but the best technique is to be kind and firm. Let's look at these are the styles. Ineffective discipline strategies. Sarcasm is a very ineffective discipline strategy. आप तो दिल्ली से आए होंगे ना, आप तो फिर कैसे करेंगे? So maybe something like that. You know, we subtly sometimes put other people down, but that doesn't work. Punishment ineffective. Permissiveness, like do whatever you want, is again ineffective. Arbitrary rules. Behave nicely. Now this is very vague. What do you mean by behave nicely? Do you know I'm from Haryana? So what do you mean by behave nicely? So you may have to be very specific. What do you mean by behave nicely? It's like I want this in the classroom. Right? So behave nicely is arbitrary. Neglect. So I'm just going to ignore you and attend to other students if you misbehave. So that's also ineffective. Yelling and disrespect, definitely, I mean, like, this doesn't happen these days. Name calling and labeling another person is ineffective. Overprotecting someone, just even for the kids, I would say it's an ineffective strategy. Physical punishment, lack of follow through. If you have given them some what we call as a logical consequence, that if you do not do this in time, then this privilege would be lost, and you don't follow through it, then that becomes ineffective, right? Too many no's is also ineffective. Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Put downs, criticism, as we already discussed. Hanging on to issues. Okay, do you remember in first year you had done this? That's also ineffective. Personalizing. Ha, I must be the bad teacher. That's when you failed. That's also ineffective. Nagging, continuously being after someone. It's ineffective for students and spouses. What is effective then? Appreciation, and respect. Logical consequences are pre-agreed upon consequences about a misbehavior. So if you misbehave, then this is gonna happen. Now this has to be pre-assigned, and they know it before doing it that this will follow. Usually, logical consequence is a loss of privilege, that this will be taken away for a specific time. Do not give logical consequences such as, like, many parents do this कि hostel में भेज दूंगा, पंखे से उल्टा लगा दूंगा, and like we cannot do these things, right? पंखे से उल्टा लटका दूंगा, and we are not gonna do it. Do not threaten the students with that, like I'll fail you or whatever. Logical consequence has to be reversible. So I often am reminded of, let's say that you're driving on a street at the speed of 60 kilometers per hour, and then suddenly, you get off the street. Suddenly you feel that shakiness because the rough ground below. That suddenly reminds us that no, we are off the track, we have to get back on track. So it should be sufficiently distressing that it alerts you, but it shouldn't be like a big rock that you rammed into, right? So it shouldn't give you a complete stop, but sufficiently distressing to get you back on track. Logical consequences should be like that. There should be a reasonable structure of discipline in the classroom. If there is very unreasonable demands from the authorities, then it cannot be followed. The rules must be consistent across time. Just because you are in a good mood, you change the rule. You are in a bad mood, you change the rule. And across each other. For instance, all students must have similar rules, not special privileges for specific gender and so on. Limits and routines, there should be specific limits. For example, no official emails would be answered after 6 p.m. This can be a rule, right? Official WhatsApp groups will not be answered after 6 p.m. If this is very effective. In fact, there are some developed countries which have made it illegal to send an email, official email, after a specific time. And there are some countries that have reduced the work days to 4 days a week, and they have seen a shoot up in productivity. What happens with extend? We're online all the time, right? So we think that we are being more efficient by sending emails at night and काम हो गया. But actually this reduces our efficiency because we are spreading it across longer period of time, which means less efficiency. If you are able to finish it off in less time, I think that would be more efficient. Then you wouldn't burn out for the rest of the 18 hours, right? So what do you think of this? Something can be done about it? That limiting official communications in a specific time at least, even for students. So they must not email also. I'm like, leave a call. So they must not email between this time. I know this is a little harsh, but in the longer run, this will really set a good discipline amongst all students and staffs, amongst each other. There should be class meetings. If there is an important issue, deliberately call a class meeting. That today the class is not academic class. I am here to discuss one important thing that has happened, and I'm really concerned about it. And I need your help in fixing this issue. So let us brainstorm some solutions. This is the problem, and this is the solution. These are the solutions that you have come up with. So you have involved these people in problem solving, and आपने उन पर rules नहीं थोपे हैं. So you have not forced these rules on them. They have come from them. They're more likely to follow these rules. Class meetings are extremely effective. There is research to show that if the students are involved in rule making and even the consequences, they are more likely to follow through rather than when forced on. Encouragement, a small encouragement goes a long way, I know for sure. Positive reinforcement, if someone behaves in a specific way, even this can help, right? I like the answer. This can help. A pat on the back, if appropriate, of course, but then words of encouragement certainly go a long way. Like I've always been very thankful to my teachers who were very encouraging. One of my teachers was very discouraging, but fortunately it was cancelled out by all the encouraging teachers. So because of their faith and small words, like once or twice, not many, I could pursue the dreams that I had thought of. Loss of privileges, as we say, should be predetermined and not sudden. This makes it more likely to be followed. All right, any questions for today? Yes, please.
So this logical consequences, right? So logical consequences could be punishment. So then how do you punishment?
See, punishment is aimed at inducing a new negative environment in the student. A new negative environment could be, you scolding them, or you asking them to, or shaming them, or asking them to, let's say, clean up something, right? So this is punishment, strictly speaking. But a logical consequence is usually a loss of privilege that they already had.
Punishment could be the reduction in the grades, marks, and that kind of punishment.
That is inducing a new negative environment.
But
So that's a
cheat in the
punishment.
exam, I think reduce the grade or fail, is it a logical consequences or is it a punishment?
Is it pre-agreed upon?
Yeah.
Yes.
Then it's a logical consequence. A pre-agreed upon consequence, they know it and they still do it, then it's a logical consequence. Punishment is aimed at derogating someone and putting them down and inducing a feeling of shame primarily. Of course, low marks will induce a feeling of shame, but we're not derogating them. They knew that this will happen. So, most helpful logical consequences are taking away the privilege for some time. Yes.
All the attributes that you showed about, effective teaching learning process, there are some people in whom some of the attributes have naturally inbuilt, and they already have a predisposition for
these are all behaviors that can be learned, mastered. Nothing here is intrinsic. Even people say that हमारे family में anger run करता है. It's nothing like that. All human behavior is learned. Even anger is modeled from other people. So that may run in families, which means that they have modeled it from someone. But it specifically nothing like there is nothing intrinsic. But yes, we do have personalities. Not that I want you to lose personalities. Don't lose your basic identity. However, these are all modifiable behaviors that can be mastered.
So you mentioned about this clinical depression. Even the anxiety and depression, they are also like critically treated.
Absolutely.
So where do you see the lines of the self-improvement and then going to the doctor for clinical treatment?
Very good. So let's talk about when to seek help. If we talk about depression, clinical depression is when you feel sad most of the day or most days of the week for more than 15 days in a row. Plus other signs such as loss of interest in the activities that you used to do earlier. Then there is irritability, there is low energy, and there is what we call as anhedonia, means you don't enjoy things anymore. So there could be increased or decreased weight, increased or decreased appetite. So there could be multiple symptoms of depression itself. Now, when to consult a therapist is when these feelings or your inner feeling, I would say physiological state, when this interferes with your functioning or it interferes with your happiness for a significant period of time. Significant period of time is more than 15 days. So if it affects your functioning or happiness for more than 2 weeks, then it's time to consult. Even anxiety, if it affects your functioning at home, at office, at work, or just your personal experience of happiness for more than 2 weeks in a row, it's time to consult. Right? Okay, yes please.
Because sometimes what happens is that there's so many things to do, you put something off, and next day you put it off. And third day you worry about it, and then you put it off again. And it's always there.
With kind permission of sir.
Yeah.
Oh my god, this is such a long topic. Procrastination is any behavior where you put off doing something to later and you know that doing it right away would be helpful. There's something called a strategic delay where you know that doing it later would be helpful. For example, I want to sell some shares and my broker says don't sell them now, wait for a week. So I put it off till next week. Now that is helpful. So when we procrastinate, there is always an emotional problem underlying, which is if we forced yourself to do it immediately, you will either feel anxious or guilty or bored or tired or something. So we avoid these feelings by procrastinating. So we don't have to just target the procrastination, which is a behavior, but the underlying feelings that you are avoiding. This is number one. Number two, now I would give a 7-day workshop on procrastination and still it wouldn't be done, but let me not postpone it. So this technique works almost all the time, right? Everyone think of one thing that they had been postponing and the last time when they postponed it. It's one choice point where they could have done it, but they didn't do it. Everyone, right? Can someone volunteer quickly so that I can demonstrate the technique? Would you like to? Okay.
Yeah,
So what was the thing that you procrastinated?
I had to send a letter for a student, and I was supposed to send it by weekend, but I had option to send it like 2 days.
Correct. So this is a very ideal example, and you chose not to send it, right?
I mean, I chose other work over it. That is
Yeah. So, but you first chose not to do it, and then there was a substitute activity which was much later. So we'll stick to the choice point where you could have started writing the letter immediately, right? At that choice point where you could have started writing the letter, what were you insisting the conditions should be? For example, the letter must have been short, or what conditions must have been met?
I needed to sit and think what to write.
So were you demanding that I must have absolute clarity, then only I will start, right? So we insist that something, if only I had clarity, I would start. Right? This is the case with all procrastination. We either have some or the other condition. I must be in a mood, I must be motivated, the weather must be perfect, the temperature must be 27 degrees and 53% humidity. Or, there must be fast internet connection, there must be a big penalty, then only I'll do it. There must be a deadline, or it has to be an extremely important task, it should be up to my mark, and so on, right? So there are so many conditions that we put. If only this was there, I would have done it. But the truth is that, let's get back to your example. Would it be helpful to start even if you did not have clarity? Right. Is it possible to start even if there was no clarity? Have you in past done things without clarity? Right. If the answer is 3, yes, then do it. Immediately do it, because it's possible to do even if the ideal conditions are not met. Right? So for this, I think we, in our culture, we have this Muhurat system, that we keep thinking that if only this was there, then I would have done it. Imagine that you have to start a new, I would say, section in the department, and it's very, very important that you have to start it, right? And there is a very nice Muhurat of starting that particular thing. But there is this small patch of wall which is not painted. What will you do? You will cover it up and still start the center, right? Because there is good muhurat. And that's what the muhurat system is for. Like, baki sab log thako. Even if it is not there, muhurat should not go. And that gets us started to do a lot of things. So don't wait for a muhurat. The muhurat is the right time, is right now. If the urge comes to your head to postpone it, don't act on that urge. Simply do it. This was an oversimplified version of how to deal with procrastination, but there are 7 to 8 different styles of procrastination. There are hundreds of different techniques to break procrastination. But pardon me, I mean, procrastination was voted very less, so when I didn't work on it in this session.
In this context, other side is people say without clarity don't do anything or jump into anything. Is that not a contradicting thing what the
That's why my first question was, would it be helpful in this situation to start without clarity? If it is helpful to start without clarity, then only go ahead. Right? For example, I want to perform a heart surgery and I don't have clarity. Would it be helpful to start without clarity? No. All right. So I would recommend a few follow-up training programs. I'll come back to you. Procrastination is one. You read it already. Discipline strategies, more effective discipline strategies. We could have actual training where we practice these discipline strategies. We could have role plays. We could have supervision on them. And it would be fun, definitely. Emotional education for students. I think this should be given to the SWC. They can start a full year emotional education program, because we got feedback from the mentors that the training was not sufficient. So whatever we did was very good, but it was not sufficient. And I do agree with that. There should be discrete 1 hour classes per week throughout the year. There could be preventive emotional education wellness for the staff as well. Like, this was just an orientation. I wouldn't call it a training, but we could have such programs running throughout the year, which will definitely boost not only your productivity, but also your mental health. These images are AI generated. I have no bias towards any class, religion, whatever. Yes, you had a question, sir.
How to identify a person needs
ADHD. We have one screening test.
after sending it to the doctor?
No. You can. It's a self-test, self-assessment test. You just tick, and if majority of them fall into the gray area of that ADHD test, then you want to go for a further assessment, which is a clinical interview. They will take history from childhood. What was your behavior in childhood? What was your focus in classroom? Were you active, hyperactive, underactive, and so on? So they will ask questions. They will do a standardized test called as Brown's assessment of executive functioning. So they do that, and then we come up with a diagnosis. Unfortunately, we don't have a blood test that will quickly give a result that you definitely have ADHD, at least in 2023. 5-10 years later, we will have a blood test, which is, I think, which will be a breakthrough. People like me wouldn't suffer for life and then get diagnosed later. So these are the follow-up workshops that I suggest, and please give your feedback on today's training. Your phones again.